Welcome to Week 12, the final week of our course. In the materials this week, we'll be talking about the future of biomanufacturing. So what are the trends for the future of biomanufacturing? First, there are the shift in profitable products, issues with capacity, as well as issues with sourcing. There are some trends that we will be seeing increasing in the future, such as single-use disposable bioprocessing systems, continuous bioprocessing, as well as flexible bioprocessing. So what do we see as future trends in biomanufacturing? Well, there will be an emphasis on economic outcomes, with more attention being paid to the economic value of a product as the determinant for funding and commercialization. We'll likely see shifting from blockbuster drugs to personalized health and wellness treatments. We are already seeing externalization and collaboration, with more reliance on external partners, academia, industry consortia, and entrepreneurs for innovation, productivity, and global expansion. And lastly, globalization, the rapid expansion to emerging countries for scientific talent and new markets. What is the strategic outlook for biomanufacturing? Well, first, there's the growth of the industry, which we could generally envision to be about 15% annually. We'll see a shift to biologics, with already 20 new approved monoclonal antibodies and over 150 monoclonal antibodies currently under clinical trials. However, this could ultimately result in capacity shortages. We can envision new technologies, a better process yields, potent compounds, and better drug delivery systems. We can see smaller markets with fewer blockbuster drugs, more personalized medications, and targeted therapies toward genetic diagnostics. These last two new technologies and smaller markets could result in smaller batch sizes. And then, most importantly, from an economic perspective, cost pressures, healthcare reform, the biogenerics, and follow-on drugs. These can all result in smaller R&D budgets for the future. So these four components together emphasize the need in the future for a more efficient process design with fast, flexible, and inexpensive manufacturing capacity. First, we'll discuss the shift in profitable products. One of the most significant trends in biomanufacturing is the development of biosimilars. The reason for this is that the patents for most commercial biopharmaceuticals, in particularly monoclonal antibodies, have expired or will be expiring within the next few years, with the first monoclonal antibody biosimilars already being approved for use in Europe. The newly established regulatory pathways are also accelerating the development of biosimilars. In existing markets, biosimilar development will spread capacity among more players. In new and emerging markets, the biosimilar development potential will increase demand for manufacturing capacity. It is of note that in all major markets, there is now legislation in place for biosimilar development. There are a number of large players who are now entering the biosimilar market. And there is a rising demand for smaller, localized manufacturing facilities, with many countries either encouraging, such as Brazil, or requiring, for example China, that these biosimilars be produced within the country. There is an increased emphasis on the cost as well as the efficiency of manufacturing. There's also the analytical issues of demonstrating biosecurity. As discussed in a previous lecture, this shift to biologics is in large part because of the higher success rates for the production of large molecule drugs as compared to small molecule drugs. This is also based on the fact that these are targeted therapies, so their specificity increases their likelihood of success. A second issue for the future of biomanufacturing is capacity. It is of note that biotherapeutic or biopharmaceutical developers are twice as likely to experience significant capacity constraints versus contract manufacturing organizations. Again, this is a future trend which is fueling the increased use of these contract manufacturing organizations. What are some of the factors that are creating this capacity constraint? First, there is a lack of trained technical or production staff, a lack of financing for expansion of the manufacturing facilities, the physical capacity or equipment, the lack of a trained scientific staff, the inability to optimize the production system or the quality control, or the inability to optimize yield. There can also be problems with downstream purifications. After recognizing some of the factors which contribute to capacity constraints, for the future, how can we avoid these? Well, first, optimizing cell culture systems to increase upstream performance. Now, as we've discussed before, optimizing the upstream performance can cause downstream bottlenecks. So it's also important to improve downstream purification performance. One of the biggest issues with biopharmaceutical industry are the regulatory processes. So in the future, we'll need to streamline the FDA regulatory process. It'll be essential to fund more early-stage scale-up production technologies. We'll need to increase in the production areas. And last, develop cost-effective, disposable, single-use technologies. The third issue in the future for biomanufacturing is outsourcing. In the future, as we see expanding demand for the products and the potential for constraints on capacity, how do we envision that these could be resolved? Well, a primary solution is outsourcing. This can lower cost, it can speed the time to the market, as well as decreasing the risk. So what kinds of biomanufacturing services can be outsourced? Well, in reality, virtually all services can, whether it's biomanufacturing facilities, process development, support services. By that we mean analytical processing, fill-finish processing, regulatory affairs services, as well as brokerage services. And these can be successful because many of these contract organizations have client or customer relationships already in place. And with improved manufacturing process, this can lead to improved efficiency. So in the future, as we move to more outsourcing, what are some of the critical issues? Well, the contract manufacturing organization must have establish a good working relationship with the biopharmaceutical company. And in some cases, this preferred service or the trusted provider network is becoming a critical issue. The CMO must have production platforms relevant to the product. The CMO must be able to stick to its schedule. They must have a demonstrated track record with products that are similar to the company's. And the CMO must demonstrate cost. So what are the future trends for outsourcing to contract manufacturing organizations globally? Well, if you look at the US and Europe, biopharmaceutical companies are likely or extremely likely to outsource some or all of their manufacturing to a contract manufacturing organization. In contrast, in South America, in India, China, and the rest of Asia, they are unlikely or will not consider outsourcing their manufacturing to a contract manufacturing organization. So why would a company consider offshoring or outsourcing? Well, outsourcing creates value for the U.S. economy by creating value for the U.S. company, and it frees the company to utilize their resources for activities which can provide added value. It can create value in 4 ways. First, the cost savings of having to produce the manufacturing on their own, new revenue, repatriated earnings, and redeployed labor. One of the most important trends for biomanufacturing in the future is single-use or disposable technology. Single-use bioprocessing equipment provides the biopharmaceutical industry with cost-effectiveness and flexibility. By greater flexibility, we mean the ability to purchase, ship, store, and install complete manufacturing systems as needed. There is a reduction in the cost of manufacturing. There is no steam, cleaning, or sterilization of the equipment needed. The equipment is cheaper, plastics versus stainless steel. And there's a reduction in the cost of waste management. The cost to incinerate disposables is a fraction of the cost of wastewater treatment. More than 68% of biopharmaceutical companies report current in-house use of single-use bioreactors. Here we show a few examples of single-use bioreactors. Here we show several examples of downstream disposable or single-use systems, whether it's for centrifugation or chromatography skids or filtration units. So one can see that there are single-use options that are available across the entire manufacturing flow path. These provide lower cost and more efficient manufacturing. The advantages of the disposables or single-use technologies are that the extensive use of disposables allows the production facility's manufacturing platform to operate at a lower cost and more efficient. The additional advantages are there is no need for cleaning or sterilization. The engineering is simpler. The equipment lead time is less because these are simpler and cheaper to make. The validation process becomes simpler. The quality and regulatory processes become simpler. The space required is less, and these are all less labor intensive. Another trend for the future of biomanufacturing is continuous manufacturing. The biomanufacturing process can be either batch manufacturing or continuous manufacturing. Traditionally, batch manufacturing has been used. In this case, all of the materials are placed within the bioreactor at the beginning of the process, and at the end of the process, they are discharged at the end. In contrast, continuous manufacturing, the material is simultaneously placed into the bioreactor and the product is withdrawn during the process. There are numerous advantages to continuous manufacturing. First, integrated processing has fewer steps. There is no manual handling, resulting in increased safety and less variability, shorter processing times, and increased efficiency. There's smaller equipment and facilities needed. This can lead to a more flexible operation, reduced inventory, lower capital cost, less work in process materials, and a smaller ecologic footprint. Inline monitoring control for increased product assurance occurs in real time. This is amenable to real-time release of testing approaches, and it consistently improves quality. So all of these have the potential for reducing the cost of manufacturing. The quality by design was discussed in our earlier lectures, but quality by design and continuous biomanufacturing are a perfect fit, as continuous biomanufacturing incorporates all of the concepts of quality by the design. There's a clear difference between batch manufacturing and continuous biomanufacturing in terms of the process analytical technologies. Continuous manufacturing lends itself to many inline real-time monitoring, while the batch or semi-batch manufacturing use of these process analytical technologies is more of an add-on. Here, appropriate process analytical technologies are key. These all involve the various inline and real-time monitoring technologies. Risk-based approaches are enablers to rank quality attributes and control strategic elements during continuous manufacturing. The drivers leading to this future trend of continuous biomanufacturing include the process and business drivers. It is important to recognize that continuous biomanufacturing has predictable performance. It's efficient, it's flexible, it can be easily standardized, it can be universal. So in multiple sites, you can have exactly the same facilities. It has reduced footprints, and there are reduced issues or risks with technology transfer. And one of the problems that one sees in terms of, say, batch manufacturing, if one looks at the steady-state processing and quality control, with batch manufacturing you see what's shown here, and the red line is variable, whereas continuous manufacturing use steady state and the process product quality. When we generally think of continuous manufacturing, we tend to think of within the actual manufacturing or downstream processing. But continuous manufacturing can also be used within the purification steps. And here we show an example of continuous chromatography capture step. In this case, it has many benefits over the batch chromatography in terms of a smaller facility footprint. There's no harvesting or clarification tanks. Their buffer and resin usage is reduced. There is an increased productivity. You can use dramatically smaller columns, up to 100-fold smaller. And this is very amenable to automation. So here's an example of the advantage of continuous processing. If one were attempting to purify 1 kilogram of clinical trial supply of monoclonal antibody, it could be achieved with less than 1 liter of protein A resin at a load flow rate of less than 200 mLs per minute, and with a total processing time of less than 1 week. Now this is the potential for continuous processing in biopharmaceutical manufacturing. This means smaller facilities, which yields from having to raise less capital and to spend less capital. It provides a faster, more predictable supply, and improved process control. Another future trend for biomanufacturing are flexible facilities. So what are the requirements of these biomanufacturing facilities of the future? Well, they need to be designed such as to minimize the capital cost. The design needs to be such that they can be rapidly constructed. They need to be able to handle a wide range of processes. They need to be flexible and quickly reconfigured. They have to be designed such as to ensure a high level of product quality, and also designed to minimize labor and operation cost. So as the biopharmaceutical marketplace changes and evolves and emerging markets come online, the facilities of the future need to be smaller and more focused on specific markets. Their flexibility must increase, and this can be enhanced with the use of disposables. Their efficiency must increase. The downstream processing must improve. These new facilities of the future need to be more nimble, standardized, and modular. They need to utilize platform processes and simpler processes that are less unique to a specific product. They need to incorporate appropriate and enhanced automation. However, they need to balance flexibility with consistency. And this can be achieved in large part by the use of single-use or disposable processing. So these biomanufacturing facilities of the future need to use standardized designs based on standard platform processes. They need to be readily adaptable to alternative processes and product types, with good manufacturing areas built using modular construction. They need to incorporate the maximum use of disposable and single-use technologies, such as disposable bags for media, buffer, and product storage. The use of single-use reactors for upstream processing, as well as pre-packed columns and membrane absorbents for downstream processing. This can result in lower capital investment and lower operating cost. You can minimize cost by minimizing the need for re-engineering. You can maximize flexibility by allowing for easy reconfiguration of your facility using modular designs. This will result in a 25% lower capital investment cost versus a traditional stainless steel facility. In addition to the reduced capital cost, operating costs can be decreased by more than 23% versus a traditional stainless steel facility. Currently, conventional biopharmaceutical plants are large, single-product dedicated plants, which are built for the manufacturing of blockbuster drugs. They tend to be inflexible with a fixed pipeline, and they are extremely costly to modify. They produce a few products, but at very high volumes. In contrast, the biotech or biopharmaceutical plants of the future will be a multi-product platforms, and they will have lower capital cost, lower operating cost. They will be built on the use of disposable or single-use technologies. The modular design allows them to be flexible. These plants will produce multiple products, but at smaller volumes. So in summary, the future biopharmaceutical trends are: we expect to see more global biopharmaceutical facilities. There'll be more biologic products, often targeting smaller markets. there will be a greater use of continuous processing, including both up and downstream processing. These will be flexible facilities which will be for multi-product production. They will be modular facilities, enabling new technologies, repurposed spaces. There'll be more efficient bioprocessing, with yields and titers continuing to increase. There'll be the use of more high-tech expression systems and engineering advances. And most importantly, more automation, monitoring, and process control, all of which decreases variability and increases the most important product quality.